It's time for Blitz on Channel 4. I'm your host, Brian Carter. We got a lot on tap for you today, some interviews, highlights, player of the week, and much more. But we're going to begin the slate here at Dawson County High School with head football coach Jeff Lee. Coach Lee, always a pleasure having you on Blitz.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having us on there.
We always appreciate it. Now, you're off to another 3-2 start, a second year in a row. You're where you are. It kind of comes not as a surprise, but, some people weren't quite sure how you were going to be able to replace some of the key offensive studs you had on your team last year. Is this about what you expected this part of the year?
Yeah, actually we did. Once we got things started, we knew defensively we were a little better. I know last week doesn't show that, but we held North Hall to seven stops. And if you'd have told me that before the game, and they still would have scored 51 and with 7 stops, I said you're crazy. But they're a good. North Hall's a good football team. Yeah, we thought we'd be on pace right now. We know offensively that we do not have the so-called firepower that we had last year, the quick strike capability. But we've got still a pretty good scheme that's going on, and we've beat the folks we've had to beat, and we're right where we thought we'd be actually.
Now, one of the question marks you did not have coming in was your offensive line. You have a very physical front there, and I think if I read this correctly, you have 8 that have starting experience somewhere on the offensive line. So that helps, especially. That's got to help your first-year quarterback, Zach Buchanan, right?
But, yeah, Zach has had a pretty good start so far. Typical, up and down, inconsistent sometimes, and look good in spots. And but your offensive line, we've got 8 guys that have started at some time. That's including the tight ends along the line. So it wasn't a depleted bunch last year. And so that's really helped so far to get us where we're at. And now going into our stretch run here, the second half of the season. It's still going. That bunch is the one that we're still holding on to. That hope is going to get us there.
Now, last year was a year that it seemed like all the stars were aligned, and the injury bug bit you guys in week 0. You lost some key players right there at the beginning. Still made the state playoffs, so it was a great season, but could have been, what could have been much more. But talk about the benefits of what happened last year for this group of guys this year.
I think just being in it, and the last 2 years now, this is our 3rd year going down the stretch where we had that shot the 3 years ago to get in against Jefferson that last game, and then carry over to last season. The injury bug did hit us early. It hurt our defensive unit tremendous and our depth overall. And as the season progressed, we had a couple more, which knocked us out of a lot of starters and everything. But that comes with this sport.
Yeah.
And so we're right now to a point where I think these guys have benefited from actually getting on the field and playing last year against some good competition. Our region is so tough.
Oh yeah.
From top to bottom, you can't take anybody for granted, and then the top two teams are really, really, really tough.
Yeah. Now, I know you still got your work cut out for you. You're only at the halfway point. This is your 11th year as the head coach of this program. What would it mean like for you? You took the team to state back in 2004 and then again last year. What would it mean for you personally to do it 2 years in a row?
Well, as all the head coaches know that are out there, and especially in our area, it's tough to repeat going to state, especially in our area. And our kids, they work hard all year long to get to this chance and to get to this place that we do have a chance to make it. So it would mean a tremendous carryover and give us something to even shoot forward for the next year, which we still got a bunch coming back every year.
Yeah.
I think the injuries are really the ones that's helping us get this experience, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
it's a blessing in disguise.
It is. Like we lost our starting center, Eli Brown, 3-year starter. Lost him Friday night. He's done for the season, but actually it plays a sophomore who's got a chance to be better down the road. So it does help you build depth for next year, but you would like to do it without those injuries.
Yeah, now, as you mentioned, a very crowded 7 AAA, one of the toughest in the state, definitely the toughest in the state because you got essentially everyone's almost playing for second a lot of years with Buford, just the way they are. It's just they can't be stopped. And as you said, North Hall is just extremely difficult. So right now it's looking like you and White County gunning for that 3 and 4 spot. How much of a benefit would it be to have that 3 spot rather than the 4 going into the state tournament?
Versus like last year playing probably the number 2 team in the state, which was St. Pius.
Yeah.
Versus playing Cartersville this year,
which
is probably going to be number 2 by the end of the season. So it is huge. That's why when we play White County and then we got the West Hall game at the end, if we don't mess up in between there, you're talking about 2 very, very physical games. Games that are going to mean a tremendous amount to all 3 of these teams that are still left in it.
Now, Coach, last question for you, and then I'll let you go. But, one of the biggest differences from last year's team and this year's team, obviously a lot of comparisons on where you're at right now in the region standings and all that, but you've had half the offensive output. Your defense has been pretty much the same as it was last year. But how do you, like you said, you lost a lot of firepower, but you're still able to win those games. How do you do it?
Well, one is what we do in the offseason. I know a lot of coaches start that, but our 3 wins, we either were behind or we were tied in the second half. And we stress our kids the tight tempo that we want to run on offense is just wearing them out. And even those bigger schools started fading there, late in the game.
Yeah.
And so that was very huge. And I think just, they've jumped in here. We're not near as talented as a team as we have been in the past. But we sure play like we are, though.
Yeah, you do. And, Coach, congratulations on a good start, and we look forward to seeing you get back in the playoffs this year.
Thanks,
we're going
Brian.
for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. When we come back, we're going to have one of the players here on Blitz.